So that's why the kinetic energy available and the amount of energy that you can extract, they are two different figures here. Okay, so the wind may have very high figure of kinetic energy, but the amount of useful power available is not that high. Okay, so that is not with only wind. Any other renewable source you go, the amount of useful power available to us will be limited. That's why we go for the non-renewable source of energy, which are of course a high grade energy, you can say. So the one of the reason we don't prefer renewable energy much, because the amount of useful power available to us will be limited. Okay, so now the question is how much power we can actually harness from the wind. Okay, so for that, this is just a global scale. I'm just trying to give you a figure of global scale, how much energy is actually available. You can think that wind energy comes from series of energy transformation from the solar energy, like we have discussed. Source solar radiation is the main source for the wind generation. Okay, or wind kinetic energy is basically related with the solar energy, and that happens with series of transformation. Like it is not directly one to one solar energy gets converted to wind energy, but there are various sub factors associated with it, like surface roughness, then the weather condition, so many things associated with to convert this solar energy to wind energy. Okay, so it is found that about 2% of the solar energy absorbed by the earth goes into the wind. Okay, so the total amount of solar energy received by the earth's surface, from that only 2% is it goes to the generation of the wind or wind kinetic energy. So from that we try to find out how much is the energy available in the earth in total in a year, if you try to find out. So the solar radiation received on the top of the earth's surface is something this figure, 350 watt per meter square. This is the amount of solar energy received in the earth atmosphere. Okay, then if we convert it 2%, like practically what we have seen, 2% goes to the wind energy, so 2% of that will be 7 watt per meter square. And from this wind energy, when we are talking about the harvesting the wind energy, we are just talking about the amount of wind energy available in the atmospheric boundary layer. So in the atmospheric boundary layer, it is around 35% of the wind energy is dissipated in the first kilometer or within the atmospheric boundary layer. From this figure, only 35% is available. So that goes to 2.45 watt per meter square. Okay. Now using this energy intensity, we can find out on an average in a year how much amount of wind is or how much of energy is available from the wind. Okay, so intensity we just saw, then the earth's surface that is available for energy extraction, wind energy extraction, if we figure like this, and convert it time to year, so seconds per year. Okay, then you can see that this will be the amount of energy that you can that is actually available on the earth surface from the wind. Okay, 4.4 into 10 to the power 22 joules, and if you take into account the total consumption of the energy currently in the earth surface, that could be something around this figure. Okay, so the total amount of wind energy what we can see here, if we can harness all the amount of wind energy, that will be 200 times larger than what we are currently using, the consumption of energy on the earth. Okay, so it is quite promising, and you can see that this is a very interesting figure. But the problem is it is not so easy to harness all the wind energy. Okay, it is not possible to harness everything whatever you are seeing in this figure. 100% conversion is not possible, and we will see how much energy we can harness actually based on an idealized situation. We will start to analyze based on an idealized machine. Instead of going into a wind turbine, we will just assume something which is pretty ideal and that converts wind energy to any other form of the energy. So from that we will try to find out how much amount of energy is actually can be converted but by that particular ideal machine. Something similar to your Carnot engine analysis. right? If you remember Carnot cycle, so we try to have two heat source, so source and sink. From that we try to find out how much amount of how efficiently we can convert heat to mechanical energy. Okay, so something similar way we are going to take an ideal device that converts the wind energy to any other form. So from there we can estimate how much amount of energy can be converted. So to begin with, let's consider this blue color hoop, which is your idealized device. Okay, and at time t equal to 0, we have this. This is your boundary you can consider here. Okay, the cylindrical domain, and t equal to 0. We assume that this much amount of air mass will pass through this cylindrical hoop by time t equal to delta t. Okay. So t equal to 0, we assume that we are interested for how much amount of wind can pass through this particular hoop, and by passing that much amount of wind, how much energy we can extract by this particular device, which is shown in this blue color. This is ideal device. Okay, so when we talk about the energy, so that is basically your kinetic energy here. We're not focusing about its potential energy. So the maximum energy contained in the wind will be its kinetic energy, which will be half mv square, right? So now the next question is, how do we measure or what is the amount of mass and the velocity? We should look into that. Okay, so mass of the air, that you can find out by using the density of the air and the volume of this particular domain. Okay, so this could be very arbitrary domain. So this is not fixed. So we just take an arbitrary ideal device which has let's say area of A. Okay, and we have considered a cylindrical domain, and through which this much amount of mass of air can pass through. Okay, in a time delta t. So if we consider the mass of air that is passing through, that will be rho a v infinity delta t. And here rho is, of course, is a variable thing. It depends like which location you are talking about, what time, because you know that rho varies with the temperature and with the height also. So we assume that rho to be constant, giving a figure of 1.2 kg per meter cube. And v infinity is your undisturbed wind speed, like it is far away from the any sort of disturbance. It's a undisturbed wind speed, so you can consider it as a wind speed at infinity. Okay, infinity means here in this case it is undisturbed, like far away from any sort of disturbance. And delta t is your time to pass this particular amount of mass through the device. Okay, so this will be like v delta t. By this time the whole mass can be passed through this particular device. Okay, here A is not the area of the blades of the device, it is the total swept area. That is the total this cylindrical area, okay, of this face. Because through that only wind is passing through. We're not focusing about the blade area of the device, we're talking about the total area here. Okay, swept area by the blade. Now from this, after we substitute the value of mass and V as V infinity, you can find out that your total kinetic energy contained by the wind will be rho A delta T V infinity Q. Yes.
Sir, can you please once explain? I didn't got that how that area is being considered. The area that is set by the blade.
Okay, we are assuming here it's a arbitrary area which you can say as A. Okay, so if you what are the difference? Like when you talk about the blade area, let's say there will be 2 or 3 blades. Okay, so each blade has one particular area. Now if you have only 3 blades, you need to multiply 3 times of that. But what area I'm considering here, this is the blade swept area. Like when you are rotating this blade, how much area it is actually sweeping. Okay, so that this is that area. So in that area only the whole mass of air is passing through. Okay, so we are not considering the blade area here, rather we are considering the total amount of area available for the wind to pass through this device. Okay, I think this will be clearer. Okay.
So, I didn't got that.
You can consider like in a stationary case, if you have this is your this is your area of the surface, right? Cylindrical surface. Now, if I consider three blades, like let's say any rectangular shape. So if you remove those three blades, the remaining area, whatever is area left out, that will be the area available for the wind.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So that is the area we are talking about. Okay, how much area is available for the wind? Okay, or the blade swept area. So from that, you can find out this will be your kinetic energy of the wind, which is passing through that particular device. Okay, then the power contained in the wind, like power will be rate of energy that you can convert. So if you assume that 100% energy is converted, then this will be your power contained in the wind. Okay, so basically you need to divide by delta T, rate of conversion of the kinetic energy. So this will be the maximum power that can be available in the wind, okay, without any obstruction, okay, or the blade is basically, or the device is not basically giving any obstruction. So 100% kinetic energy can be converted to useful energy. So this will be your energy contained by the wind. So one thing is we cannot convert this energy 100% to the useful one. So there will be a limit because the wind is a low grade energy. So there will be a limit of converting this whole amount of energy to useful work. Okay, so that we will see. Another thing before we go ahead. So here you can see that the energy contained in the wind will be larger if we are talking about the higher wind speed. If your V infinity is larger, the total energy available or contained in the wind will be larger. Okay, so that's why whenever we are talking about harvesting the energy or wind energy, so there we look for a location where we have higher wind speed, okay, or your V infinity is larger, so that the total energy available in the wind is larger. From that you can extract a good amount of wind energy. Okay, so if the total energy available is more, the amount of energy you can extract will be obviously higher. Okay, now like I have said, we cannot extract the 100% kinetic energy because it's a low grade energy. You can think it in otherwise. If you could able to extract the 100% wind energy, okay, so then what will happen? Whatever air is passing by and passing through the blade, after it passes through the blade, wind will immediately goes to rest. Okay, because you are converting whole of its kinetic energy to any useful amount of other form, right? So, but that doesn't happen. The air velocity is reduced, but it doesn't go to zero. Okay, so that's why you can see in other words or otherwise that you can only convert few portion of the wind energy to useful one, and there is a limit to it which we will derive soon. So that is called Behd's limit. Okay, so this is a scientist who has German scientist who has first found the limit, and the limit is 59.3%. This is the maximum that you can harness from the wind. Okay, it is not 100% that you can convert the wind energy to any useful form. You can go up to 59.3%. Okay, so that is the maximum you can convert. All right, any question? Okay, so now we will derive the Behd's limit. So for that, let's start with our idealized device again. So let's consider the incoming wind speed at infinite distance is V infinity, and we have this ideal machine here. Okay, where when the wind is passing through this machine, its velocity is V, its area is A. Okay, this particular area is A, and at the infinite distance far away, its velocity goes to V2. Okay, so is this velocity V2 and V infinity will be same at the inlet side or at the outlet side? What do you think? Will it be same or different?
Yes.
At the infinite distance before the wind, at the inlet side and infinite distance at the outlet side. Will it be same?
Sir, it will be reduced by some margin.
It will be reduced by some margin, yes. Because if it is same, then you are basically not harnessing any energy. Okay, so you're not harnessing any energy. So the velocity v infinity here, if it goes to v infinity again, so there is no change of the kinetic energy. Okay, so that's why it cannot be same v infinity. So it will be v2 will be less than v infinity. So across this device, there will be a pressure drop also, because there is a change in the velocity. So you can see that across this device, on this side, let's say we have a pressure of P plus, and on the other side we have a pressure of P minus. Okay, and at the infinity distance, we of course we need to maintain the same pressure. It will be the atmospheric pressure. Someone's mic is on. Okay, I think someone's mic is on. Can you? Okay, so at infinite distance, the pressure will go to its atmospheric pressure, P infinity here. So you can see that area wise, the inlet area and outlet area will be of course different, because the velocity was different. But when you are maintaining the pressure, so basically you'll have a diffuser kind of cross section here. Okay, converging and diverging type. Now, what we need to do is we are interested to find out what is this velocity v that will give us the maximum amount of energy extraction. Okay, so to do that, let's do some mathematics here. At first, we can start with Bernoulli's principle, because we assume that the flow is irrotational. Okay, and there is no unsteadiness here, and there are other assumptions also I have mentioned here when you are deriving the Benz equation here. So there are a few more assumptions you can see here. There is no hub in this particular rotating device, and it possesses infinite number of rotor blades, but which do not provide any drag resistance to the wind. Okay, so there won't be any drag resistance to the wind, but there are many rotor blades. Okay, and the flow is uniform both in the inlet and the outlet side. Okay, so based on that, we can apply the Bernoulli's principle both in the inlet side and the outlet side. So at the inlet side, if we apply the Bernoulli's equation, you can see this is the first one, half rho v infinity square plus p infinity. If I consider any point here and any point on just before it's hitting the this particular rotor device. Okay, so there the velocity is v. And the pressure on this side is P plus. Okay. Similarly, I can write Bernoulli's equation for the outlet side. That will be, let's start from this first. So half rho V2 square plus P infinity. Pressure here is P infinity. And at this location, the velocity will be half rho V square plus P minus. Okay. Now you can simplify these two equations by cancelling out and subtracting them. So you get P plus minus P minus will be equals to half rho P infinity square minus V2 square. Okay, so basically the difference between square of the velocity for the inlet and the outlet, that gives rise to your pressure difference here, P plus and P minus. Okay, now if you know the pressure difference, from the pressure difference basically you can find out what will be the thrust generated by this particular device. Okay, so since you know the pressure difference, just you need to multiply with the area, the swept area here, so that you can multiply and you can find out the amount of thrust generated by this device. Okay. Now this thrust also can be obtained in another way by using the momentum conservation. Right, rate of change of momentum will give you the thrust. So you have incoming velocity v infinity, outgoing velocity as v2, and the mass flow rate is rho a v through this particular device. Okay, so from that you can also get expression for the thrust. Now these two thrusts must be same. Okay, so you need to equate them, and from that you can find out the velocity v of this particular device it is actually half of, or the mean of, v infinity plus v2. So mean of this incoming velocity and the outgoing velocity at the infinite distance. This v is mean of that. Okay, so this was not intuitive at the beginning, but you can see that after doing these steps, we can find out this velocity v. It will be mean of these two value. Okay, inlet side and the outlet side. So now the next question is, when you are talking about the maximum. Yes.
Sir, this thrust force is at the end of the diffuser
Here.
type section.
Here. The thrust force is generated on the device because of the wind is flowing. So how much force is generated, experienced, or you can say experienced by the device. Okay.
Okay.
So here, when we are talking about the maximum of the energy that can be extracted by this particular device, so we need to actually see this value v here. Okay, because you can see that if we can find out or optimize this value v, that will give us the maximum. Okay, now there could be two extreme situations you can think about. Let's say that this device here, it allows 100%. Okay, it allows everything to pass through. Okay, so in that case, what will happen? Your v2 will be v infinity, because the device is allowing everything to pass through. So v2 will be v infinity, and then how much amount of energy we can extract from that? You can see that the net amount of thrust force generated will be also 0. You can see here v2 will be, in that case, will be v infinity. So net thrust force will be 0. And from the thrust, if you want to try to find out the power, which is thrust times your velocity of the device, so that will be 0 here. Okay, so because this particular term goes to 0, so net power output will be 0. The second extreme situation, when you say that this device blocks everything, like 100% amount of energy, it afterwards it goes to 0. Okay, v2 is 0, it blocks 100%. Okay, so in this case, what will happen to your v here? This v will be 0 because it is blocking everything. So then your net thrust in that case will be also 0, and because of that, the power extraction will be also 0. So you can see that if I operate at both the extreme, either it passes through 100% wind or it obstructs 100% wind, I am not going to get the maximum figure of power extraction. So in between somewhere there will be a value where we can get or we try to find out a maximum. Okay. Yes.
Can you just tell the second case again?
Yes.
With 0% efficiency.
Okay, for the second case, your v2 is 0, but v here, since it is not allowing any wind to pass through, right? It is 100% obstructing it. So what will be the net velocity wind that is going through it? Will be 0. So when this v goes to 0, then the net this thrust force T will be 0. And from that, if the thrust is 0 again, your power extraction will be also 0. Okay. Okay. So now we need to find out a way to get the maximum. So that can be done by defining an particular term here, which is called axial interference factor. Okay. So this interference factor you can define as A, which value is between 0 to 1. Okay. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell that this v, which is passing the velocity of the wind that is passing through the device, that can be expressed in terms of this axial interference factor and can be related with your incoming wind speed. So v infinity times 1 minus a. So now when a goes to 1, so this particular term will be 0. Okay, that means 100% blockage. Okay, when a is 1, you can think that the device is blocking the wind 100%. So a goes to v goes to 0. Now there will be another extreme case where a is equals to 0. That means the device is allowing 100% wind. So you can get v will be that time v infinity. Okay, so in between any sort of interference, so you can have a value of a that will suitably govern the value of V here. Okay, so now you can also, using this particular expression, you can also write V2 in terms of this one, V infinity and A. Okay, using this particular expression, because we know that V is mean of V infinity plus and V2, right? So we can also write V2 in terms of A and V infinity. Okay, so that is, I think, pretty simple. Just substitute the value here and you can find out V2 as V infinity times 1 minus 2A. Okay, so V is V infinity times 1 minus A, V2 is V infinity times 1 minus 2A. Now, so what is our aim here? We are trying to actually find out a maximum that power can be extracted from the wind based on this axial interference factor. Like this factor, somewhere it will be maximizing the wind power. Okay, so that ultimately we are trying to find out. So we need to first get the expression of the power. Okay, so expression of the power extraction here. You can write out, like I have said, using the thrust force. Okay, so which will be your so basically this expression here times your velocity. Okay, this times your velocity. Okay, so this is your expression here. Half rho A, V is your velocity of the device, and the other thing is your actually your thrust force. Now you can simplify this particular value V, write it out in terms of axial interference factor. Okay, so if you write out in terms of axial interference factor, both V and V2, so the form will look like this. Okay, after simplification, actually you will get P as half of rho A V infinity cube 4A minus 8A square plus 4A cube. Okay, so this is what you will get power extracted, possible power extracted by considering the axial interference factor. Now, how can we find out the maximum of this? What do we need to do?
Derivative equal to 0.
So just hold on. I think my mic is way out. Just a moment. Yes. So what we need to do to get the power?
Take the derivative equal to 0.
Maximize the bracket term.
I still cannot hear. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Take the derivative equal to 0. Okay. Is it audible now? Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. Okay. so yeah, the question is, how can we get the? You can also see the screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what should we do now to get the maximum? We should differentiate this particular power value with respect to A. Okay, can you do that? Can you differentiate and find out the value of A that might give you the maximum power?
It is 1 by 3.
A is 1 by 3. What are the other? Because you will get two values here, right? At least
1 and 1 by 3.
1 and 1 by 3. Okay. So we cannot take A as 1 because if you take A as 1, that is 100% blockage. Okay, so that situation doesn't give you any useful amount of power. Okay, so the remaining option is 1/3. So using this 1/3, you can actually substitute 1/3 in this figure here. Okay, or in this expression, basically we are substituting in this expression A as 1/3. So once you substitute that, you can find out or simplify the equation, keeping the wind contained or the energy contained by the wind. So this is what we have seen, energy contained by the wind, half rho A V infinity cube, and this is a term which is extra added to it. Okay, so the power extracted from the wind is not 100% power contained in the wind, but it means it is a factor of something. So this factor is your basically the maximum you can obtain, and this is called the Baird's limit. Okay, so this is 16/27, which if you take percentage of it, it will be 59.3%. Okay, now you can see that this is different than your Carnot cycle, where you have, at least in the Carnot cycle ideal device, you have both temperature T1, T2, source temperature, sink temperature. But in this case, no such thing. You get a direct figure. Okay, 16/27. All right. Now the next thing is, do you think that this device is working on a thrust principle? No, this is not working on the thrust principle, because if it is working in the thrust principle, then it would have receded by the wind. The device would have receded by the wind. But now what we have considered, the device is stationary at its location. It is as it is there at its location. So this is not operated on the thrust principle. It's a very ideal situation, you can say. It's operating in a very ideal manner, and the maximum that you can obtain is 16/27. Now, what we have discussed previously, we have discussed that the devices previously those are used, those are thrust-based devices. Okay, so now what happens when we talk about thrust-based devices? How much energy we can extract from that? Okay, the question will be in that line. So to find out that, we can redraw our or restart our analysis by assuming a thrust type of device here. Okay, so when we talk about this again, we consider this is the ideal device. Okay, but it is operating based on thrust. Okay, now how much amount of force this particular device will experience by the wind? The amount of force it will experience when it is not receding, when the u velocity is 0, when it is at this location, the total force that will experience by this particular device by the wind will be rho A V infinity times V infinity. This is mass time velocity, rate of change of momentum, and there will be some factor, force coefficient, because 100% doesn't go to means 100% is not converted. Okay, so whole amount of force from the wind may not be getting converted here, but there may be some losses. Okay, so you need to consider that loss factor here. So coefficient of force. Okay, so coefficient of force you have added. Now, when we say that this device is working on a thrust principle, so that means it is also going to move at a certain velocity. Let's say that velocity is u. Okay, when this device is moving at this velocity u, due to the action of this particular wind here, now how much velocity or how much mass this particular device is going to absorb? So that will be its relative velocity, v infinity minus u. So this above equation here, it will be replaced by this particular term, v infinity minus u square. Okay, I think that is clear, because it will be in the relative, it will be seeing a relative wind. The device is moving at u, so how much amount of wind it is experiencing in a relative sense you need to find out. So this will be your force here, and the power will be your force time the device with which it is moving. Let's say it is u. Okay, so CF, that means force time your device velocity. All right. So next thing will be, need to find out what will be the maximum power we can extract in this case. Okay, so for that, what you need to do? You need to differentiate with respect to U. In this case, U is the governing parameter with which the device is actually moving, or because of the wind giving a thrust force to the device, and with that thrust force, if the device is moving at a velocity U, so to get a maximum power output, so you need to look into this particular velocity U here, or rather differentiate with respect to U. So if you differentiate, okay, first thing you open that equation here. You can see here this square term here. So after rewriting that equation, differentiate it and also define a term beta. Okay, if you define a term beta here, beta as U by V infinity, then something similar also you will get two resolutions, 1 and 1 by 3. Okay, so using these two solution, can you tell me how much you are getting as P? So 1 is not possible, right? In this case, 1 is not possible because that means U is when beta goes to 1, means this ratio is 1. This velocity ratio is 1. So that means the device is moving by the wind 100%. There is no resistance offered. So that means you are not able to actually convert any energy. Okay, so 1 is not a solution. So 1/3 is the solution. So using 1/3, can you tell me how much amount of, what is the percent or the compared to your bed's limit, how much you are actually getting in this case?
Sir,
Convertible energy.
Sir, I wanted to ask that here also the case is similar to the like previous one, only where we had the blades and the wind was passing through that section.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay, can you tell me how much after you simplify, substitute the value of beta here? My question is how much power we can extract from the energy contained by the wind in its undisturbed condition. So you need to rewrite your equation in that format. Okay, you can try out. So after you simplify, basically you will get the equation like this. Okay, so power will be half of CF rho A V infinity cube, and here the figure will be 8 by 27. Okay, now if I assume that there is no loss, this CF is 1. In that case also you can see the amount of energy that can be converted from the wind, that will be half of the bed's limit. It is not 16 by 27, it is 8 by 27. It is half of the bed's limit. So you can see that the thrust type wind turbines are at least 50% less efficient than the ideal wind turbine that we have just derived, the ideal case. But in case of thrust type, it is at least 50% less, but or more than that. Based on this factor CF here, it will be still smaller. Okay, so that's why we don't prefer to use these thrust type devices anymore. These days you don't see these thrust type devices are being used for the electrical power generation, or small scale uses are still there wherever these are can be considered as an antique piece. So you can find them for small scale uses, but not in the large scale. Okay, they are not efficient, like we have already derived that. So there is something else that are used these days instead of this thrust type wind turbines, we use aerodynamic principle based turbines. So I think, okay, we still got some time. So aerodynamic principle based wind turbines, here basically what we do is we try to take the advantage of aerodynamic forces that can be experienced due to its geometry of the blade itself. Like you can see that if this blade, I put a blade here and there is an incoming wind, then because of its shape itself, okay, so it may experience both lift and drag force. Okay. Now, what happens? This blade might be moving. Okay, this blade might be moving, and there might be a wind which is coming from any other direction, not in this direction, horizontal to the blade, but might be coming at certain angle of attack. Like you know, let's say this is the blade, the wind is incoming from this direction. Okay, at certain angle. Now, what will happen if I want to find out what will be the relative wind seen by the blade? Okay, the blade is moving at this direction u, and there is a incoming wind v along this direction. Then using a vector diagram, you can actually find out what will be your relative wind seen by the blade here. Okay, so that will be your relative wind w, and after you know the relative wind, you can actually define your this lift and drag force, which will be along the direction of the relative wind, your drag force, perpendicular to the direction of the wind will be your relative wind, that will be your lift force. Okay, FL and FD. So now you can see that this FD is a resistive force. It doesn't help. It's basically resistance to your energy extraction also. So we are not interested for this FD that much. But here this FL, if I resolve this FL or I make just this F, the resultant F, that you can find out using FD and FL, this resultant F. So then there will be a component along the U direction. If I resolve this F, there will be a component along the Q direction. Okay, so this component actually aids to the motion of the blade. Okay, so based on this lift force, if you have higher lift force, you can see that this component along the direction of the blade, this force component will be larger. So that is the practice what is followed now. Instead of using a thrust based principle, we are going to, the modern wind turbines are mostly used this lift based or aerodynamic performance based turbines are mostly available these days. All right, and how it is operated? It is based on this lift force. So the lift force will give a component along the motion direction of the blade, and that will aid to its motion. Like when the wind, this turbine is rotating, and you got this additional force that is helping to its rotation, so the motion itself will continue. All right. So that is how these modern wind turbines are being fabricated. And where do you see this aerofoil section? I think this is also clear to you because most of you have already seen how this wind turbines looks like. So let's consider this two-bladed wind turbines. If you see that this turbine is rotating in this plane or in this manner along the vector direction here, so your aerofoil section will be like this. Okay, and this will be your leading edge and that will be your trailing edge side. So leading edge will face the incoming wind. Okay, incoming wind it will face, and the trailing edge side means away from the wind. And based on the force vector diagram, you can actually find out this particular component that aids to the motion. Now, one of the things that generally we will discuss also subsequently, maybe in next class. So what we target to do is we try to reduce this FD here. Okay, because this FD is not a useful quantity. Rather, if you can have a small FD value, your FL goes high, then this force component also gets increased. Okay, so how do we reduce this FD? This can be reduced if you can reduce the overall area seen by the relative wind. Okay, if you can align your blade in such a way that, or this particular cross section of the blade in such a way that it is seeing the relative wind with a lesser surface area or lesser projected area. So in that case, your FD will be smaller. So to do that, what normally is done, we try to twist this blade in some way or pitch this blade. Generally, the term here will be pitching. If you pitch this blade by some angle so that your area seen by the relative wind or the blade area seen by the relative wind is reduced, then your drag force will be also reduced. Okay, so that is what generally is done. Your blade is pitched along the relative wind direction so that your drag force reduces and your lift force gets increased, which is add to its motion. Okay. Okay, so I think it's one already. So we stop here. We will have class tomorrow. Tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Okay, let me take the attendance. Any question? Okay, if no